Imagine this: a single compound hidden inside a bright yellow plant root has been quietly used in traditional medicine for over 3,000 years. Ancient healers in China and India swore by it. Modern researchers are now scrambling to study it, and yet millions of people have never even heard its name. Some call it nature's metformin. Others say it's just another overhyped supplement that'll drain your wallet and do nothing for your body. So which is it? Is this ancient yellow root a genuine breakthrough, or just another wellness fad that'll be forgotten by next year? I'm Dr. Leonid Kim, and today I'm going to walk you through the real science, the surprising mechanisms, the latest clinical research, and the truth nobody's talking about. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly whether this compound deserves a place in your daily routine, or whether you should save your money. We're covering 6 key insights that will completely change how you think about this golden molecule, and I promise you, at least 2 of them will genuinely surprise you. Here's what most people don't realize: this compound isn't some new discovery cooked up in a lab last year. It's called berberine, and it's found in plants like barberry, golden seal, Oregon grape, and tree turmeric. Picture a small shrub with bright red berries. Inside those berries, and especially in the roots and bark, is a bright yellow alkaloid, berberine. Traditional Chinese medicine texts dating back to the Han Dynasty describe its use for digestive problems, infections, and what ancient physicians called internal heat. But this is where it gets interesting. For centuries, berberine was mostly ignored by Western medicine. It was considered folk medicine, something your grandmother might mention, not something a modern doctor would prescribe. Then, about 15 years ago, something changed. Researchers started running proper clinical trials. And the results? Well, let's just say the medical community started paying very close attention. Here's the surprising part: berberine doesn't work like a typical supplement that just adds nutrients to your body. It works at the cellular signaling level, like a master switch that tells your cells how to behave. Think of your body as a massive city with billions of tiny factories, your cells. Each factory needs instructions. Berberine walks into these factories and flips specific switches. The most important switch? It's called AMPK, the metabolic master switch. When AMPK is activated, it's like flipping your body from storage mode to burn mode. Your cells start pulling sugar from your blood more efficiently. They start breaking down fat for energy. They clean up damaged components. It's as if someone walked into a cluttered warehouse, turned on the lights, and said, "Okay, everyone, cleanup time." Most people get this wrong. They think berberine is just another herb that supports wellness in some vague way. No, berberine is a molecular signaling molecule. It's communicating directly with your biology. Let's talk about the research that first made doctors sit up straight. In 2008, a landmark study was published in the journal Metabolism. Researchers took 116 patients with type 2 diabetes and gave them berberine. The results? Their fasting blood sugar dropped by 20%. Their HbA1c, the 3-month blood sugar average, improved significantly. But here's what changes everything. When researchers compared berberine directly to metformin, the most prescribed diabetes drug in the world, the results were shockingly similar. Both lowered blood sugar. Both improved insulin sensitivity. This changes everything. Think about that for a second. A plant compound, costing a fraction of the price, producing effects comparable to a pharmaceutical drug that's been the gold standard for decades. No wonder people started calling it nature's metformin. But how does it actually work? Remember that AMPK switch I mentioned? Here's the simple analogy. Imagine your bloodstream is a highway and sugar molecules are cars. In a healthy person, insulin is like a traffic officer who waves cars into parking garages, your muscle and fat cells, where they're stored as energy. In someone with insulin resistance, that traffic officer has gone partially deaf. He's waving, but the cars aren't listening. They keep circling the highway, causing traffic jams, high blood sugar. Berberine walks in and essentially retrains the traffic officers. It makes cells more responsive to insulin signals. It also opens up new parking garages by increasing the number of glucose transporters on cell surfaces. The sugar cars finally get off the highway. But this is where it gets interesting. Berberine doesn't stop there. It also reduces glucose production in your liver. Your liver is like a bakery that makes fresh sugar even when you haven't eaten, especially overnight. Berberine tells that bakery, slow down. We have enough supply. This is exactly what metformin does too. A 2015 meta-analysis, that's a study of studies, the gold standard for evidence, looked at 27 clinical trials involving over 2,500 participants. The conclusion? Berberine significantly reduces fasting blood sugar, post-meal blood sugar, and HbA1c. The evidence wasn't just promising, it was robust. Most people get this wrong. They think you need to have diabetes for blood sugar control to matter. But here's the truth. Even slightly elevated blood sugar, what doctors call prediabetes, affects over 100 million Americans. It damages blood vessels, clouds thinking, drains energy, and accelerates aging. You don't need to be diabetic for Berberine's blood sugar benefits to matter to you. Now, if Berberine only helped with blood sugar, that would already be impressive. But the surprising part is, it doesn't stop there. Let me tell you about another crucial study. In 2013, researchers gave Berberine to patients with high cholesterol. The results? LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol, dropped by an average of 25%. Triglycerides fell by 35%. And here's the kicker. HDL, the good cholesterol, actually increased. To understand why this matters, let me use another analogy. Imagine your bloodstream as a river. Cholesterol is like debris floating in that river. LDL is the heavy, sticky debris that clumps together and jams up the flow. HDL is like cleanup crews that scoop up the debris and carry it away. When you have too much LDL and not enough HDL, your river starts getting clogged. Eventually, you get blockages, heart attacks, strokes. Berberine does something remarkable. It activates a receptor in your liver called LDLR. Think of it as a cholesterol vacuum cleaner. This receptor pulls LDL out of your blood and breaks it down. At the same time, Berberine reduces the production of new cholesterol in your liver, similar to how statin drugs work. But unlike statins, Berberine doesn't come with the same muscle pain side effects that make many people stop taking them. Here's a statistic that might surprise you. A 2022 systematic review found that Berberine was as effective as moderate-dose statins for lowering LDL cholesterol in people with metabolic syndrome, but with significantly fewer reported side effects. Most people get this wrong. They think cholesterol is just about heart disease, but high cholesterol combined with high blood sugar creates a dangerous cocktail. The sugar damages your blood vessel walls, making them rough and inflamed. Then cholesterol sticks to those rough walls like mud on a damaged road. Berberine addresses both problems simultaneously. It's like fixing the road and reducing the mud. This dual action is why researchers are increasingly excited about Berberine for metabolic syndrome. That cluster of conditions including high blood sugar, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and abdominal obesity that affects about 1 in 3 American adults. Now, let's talk about something that connects virtually every chronic disease on the planet, inflammation. Here's what most people don't realize. Inflammation isn't always bad. When you cut your finger, inflammation is the redness, heat, and swelling that brings healing cells to the wound. It's your body's natural defense system. That's acute inflammation. Helpful, temporary, necessary. But there's a darker side, chronic inflammation. This is when that internal fire never fully goes out. It's like having a smoldering campfire in your living room that never gets extinguished. Day after day, week after week, that low-grade fire damages everything around it. Chronic inflammation is now linked to heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, depression, autoimmune conditions, and even accelerated aging. It's the common thread. And here's where Berberine becomes fascinating. Remember how I described inflammation as an internal fire? Well, Berberine acts like a precision firefighter. It doesn't shut down your entire immune system. That would leave you vulnerable to infections. Instead, it targets specific inflammatory pathways. The main pathway Berberine quiets is called NFKB. Think of it as the master arsonist that starts inflammatory fires throughout your body. When NFKB gets overactive, it triggers the release of inflammatory molecules like TNF-alpha, IL-6, and CRP. These are the chemical signals that keep the fire burning. Berberine walks in and essentially puts a lock on NFKB. Studies show it reduces C-reactive protein, a key marker of inflammation, by up to 40% in people with metabolic disorders. But this is where it gets really interesting. Research published in 2020 showed that Berberine also calms inflammation in the gut, your digestive tract. Why does this matter? Because about 70% of your immune system lives in your gut. When your gut lining becomes inflamed, a condition often called leaky gut, undigested food particles and toxins can slip through into your bloodstream. Your immune system panics and triggers more inflammation throughout your body. Berberine helps strengthen that gut barrier. It promotes the growth of beneficial bacteria while suppressing harmful ones. It reduces inflammation in the gut wall. It's like repairing a damaged fence that was letting intruders into your property. Most people get this wrong. They think inflammation is something you feel. But chronic inflammation is often silent. You don't feel it until the damage is done. That's why having a compound that quietly dials down that internal fire without suppressing your immune system is so valuable. Now, here's what changes everything. We're going to explore some benefits of berberine that most people have never heard about. First, gut health and the microbiome. Your gut contains roughly 39 trillion bacteria, more bacterial cells than human cells in your entire body. These bacteria aren't just passive passengers. They manufacture vitamins, regulate your immune system, produce neurotransmitters, and even influence your mood. Berberine has a fascinating effect on this bacterial ecosystem. It acts almost like a selective antibiotic, suppressing harmful bacteria like certain strains of E. coli and Clostridium, while allowing beneficial bacteria like Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus to thrive. A 2020 study in the journal Gut Microbes found that berberine reshaped the gut microbiome in ways that improved metabolism, reduced inflammation, and even enhanced the production of short-chain fatty acids, compounds that feed your gut lining and reduce cancer risk. But here's the surprising part. Some researchers believe berberine's benefits might be mediated through the gut. In other words, berberine might not even need to be absorbed into your bloodstream to work. It might be talking to your body primarily through the bacteria in your digestive tract. This changes everything about how we think about this compound. Second, brain health and cognitive protection. Here's a statistic that should get your attention. Berberine can cross the blood-brain barrier, that protective shield that keeps most substances out of your brain. This is rare and significant. Once in the brain, berberine reduces neuroinflammation, that internal fire in your brain tissue. It protects neurons from damage. It enhances the clearance of abnormal proteins. Animal studies show it improves memory and learning. Human studies are still early, but the preliminary data on berberine for cognitive protection is genuinely exciting. Think of your brain as a high-performance engine. Neuroinflammation is like grit in the oil. Over time, that grit damages the engine. Berberine helps filter out that grit and keeps the engine running smoothly. Third, nerve pain and neuropathy. This one is close to my heart as a physician because I've seen how devastating nerve pain can be. Diabetic neuropathy, nerve damage from high blood sugar, affects up to 50% of people with diabetes. It causes burning, tingling, numbness, and sometimes unbearable pain. Emerging research suggests berberine may help protect nerves and reduce neuropathic pain. The mechanism? It reduces the inflammatory signals that damage nerve cells, improves blood flow to nerve tissues, and may even promote nerve regeneration. Most people get this wrong. They think nerve pain is just something you have to live with. But compounds that address the root causes, inflammation, poor circulation, high blood sugar, can genuinely make a difference. Okay, so berberine sounds promising. But here's what most people get completely wrong: how they take it. Let me be very clear about proper usage. Dosage: the research-backed dosage is 500 milligrams taken 2 to 3 times daily for a total of 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams per day. This isn't a more is better situation. Studies show that 1,500 milligrams daily produces optimal results, and higher doses don't necessarily add benefits while increasing side effects. Timing: take berberine with meals, specifically right before or with your first bite of food. Why? Because berberine works best when glucose is entering your bloodstream. Taking it with meals maximizes its blood sugar lowering effects and reduces stomach upset. Duration: berberine isn't a quick fix. Most studies show meaningful results after 8 to 12 weeks of consistent use. Your body needs time to adapt. The AMPK activation, the microbiome changes, the cholesterol shifts, these take weeks to fully manifest. Now, the common mistakes: taking it on an empty stomach. This is probably the most common error. Berberine can cause stomach cramps, diarrhea, and nausea when taken without food. Always take it with meals, expecting overnight results. I've had patients tell me, I took it for 3 days and nothing happened. Of course nothing happened. This isn't caffeine. It's a metabolic modulator. Give it time. Using the wrong form? Berberine has very poor absorption on its own. Some estimates say less than 1% reaches your bloodstream. Look for berberine HCl or formulations that include absorption enhancers. Some newer formulations combine berberine with compounds like piperine from black pepper to boost bioavailability, combining it with diabetes medication without medical supervision. Here's the critical warning: if you're already taking metformin, insulin, or other blood sugar lowering drugs, berberine can stack with those effects and cause hypoglycemia, dangerously low blood sugar. Always consult your doctor before combining. Cycling it incorrectly. Some people take berberine continuously for years without breaks. While berberine is generally considered safe, I recommend a common sense approach. Take it for 3 months, then take a 2-week break. This gives your body a reset and may prevent any potential microbiome adaptation. Let me quickly bust some myths I see floating around the internet. Myth: berberine is a natural metformin replacement, so I can stop my diabetes medication. Fact: berberine shows comparable effects in studies, but it is not a replacement for prescribed medication without your doctor's guidance. Never stop prescribed drugs on your own. Myth: berberine helps with weight loss, so I can eat whatever I want. Fact: berberine may modestly support weight management. Studies show an average of 2 to 4 pounds of weight loss over 12 weeks in people with metabolic syndrome. But it's not a magic pill. Diet and exercise still matter enormously. Myth: berberine is completely safe because it's natural. Fact: natural doesn't mean risk-free. Berberine can interact with medications, affect liver enzymes, and isn't recommended during pregnancy or breastfeeding. Respect it as the biologically active compound that it is. Myth: berberine only works for diabetics. Fact: the metabolic, anti-inflammatory, and gut health benefits apply to a much broader population. Anyone with prediabetes, metabolic syndrome, high cholesterol, or chronic inflammation may benefit. So, is berberine overrated or underrated? After reviewing the latest research, the clinical trials, the meta-analyses, the mechanistic studies, here's my honest assessment. Berberine is somewhat underrated by the mainstream medical community and somewhat overrated by the wellness influencer crowd. The truth lives in the middle. Berberine is not a miracle cure. It won't reverse diabetes overnight. It won't melt away 50 pounds while you sleep. It won't replace a healthy lifestyle. But, and this is important, the scientific evidence for berberine's effects on blood sugar, cholesterol, inflammation, and gut health is genuinely robust. We're not talking about one small study funded by a supplement company. We're talking about dozens of randomized controlled trials, multiple meta-analyses, and a clear biological mechanism of action. For people with prediabetes, metabolic syndrome, or elevated cholesterol who want a natural adjunct to diet and lifestyle changes, berberine deserves serious consideration. For people already on medication, it deserves a conversation with your physician. Here's what I want you to remember. Your body is not a collection of isolated parts. It's an interconnected system. Blood sugar affects inflammation. Inflammation affects your gut. Your gut affects your brain. Your brain affects your choices. Berberine works at multiple points in this interconnected web, and that's precisely why it's so interesting. Most people get this wrong. They look for the one magic pill. But health isn't about magic. It's about stacking small, evidence-based interventions. Berberine might be one piece of that stack for you. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button. It tells YouTube to share this with more people who need this information. Subscribe to my channel for more science-backed health breakdowns where I separate hype from reality. And drop a comment below. Have you tried berberine? What was your experience? I read every single comment. Your health is your most valuable asset. Protect it with knowledge, not just hope. I'm Dr. Leonid Kim. Take care of your health.